says you can't play chords on a bass?
Chords on a bass? That's not proper.
Forget that guy. I'm gonna teach you a bunch of chords on the bass. These work on any bass, but I'm gonna tell you the advantages of playing them on your 6-string bass. I'll teach you how to think about chords and how to come up with chords of your own. If you stick around, I'll tell you how to get your free download to get you started with an actual song. But before we get started, I would appreciate it if you'd give this video a like and subscribe to my channel during this 7-second bumper. I mean, come on, what else are you gonna do for the next 7 seconds? So what's special about a 6-string bass? Chords can be technically played on any bass. A chord is just multiple notes ringing out at the same time. In fact, in my instant jazz video, I teach you to instantly sound like a jazz musician with just 2 chord shapes on your bass. And in that video, I'm playing a 4-string bass. So what makes 6-string special? Well, some of these things are obvious. Of course, you get more options with a 6-string or with a 5-string with a high C because you have a higher range, right? You've got a higher set of notes you can have access to. But even more important than that, I think, is the quality of the high C string. When you have a thinner string, it has a thinner sound, less bassy tones. And often we want that in our music, those thick, bassy sounds from a nice thick string. But when you're playing chords, a lot of times it's too much, it's too overpowering. And you have a wider range of influence on the music if you can have access to that thinner string. And this just leads to less dissonance overall in the music. The bassier your tone, the more dissonance the same notes will actually provide. So by having a thinner tone on your thinner string, you're just going to have more options. And a couple of quick pro tips on playing chords, and especially with a 6-string bass. Use a mute. You don't have to, but if you're not playing open strings, take a mute and slide it way up the neck. So this just keeps everything from ringing when you don't want it to, and it's going to allow your hands more freedom because they're not having to do nearly as much muting, and you can do more cool things that way. The other thing is to play with your tone a little bit, especially if you have onboard EQ. But you could also do this at a DI box or at an amp or on a pedal. I like to actually play when I'm playing chords. Often when I'm playing chords, I'm going to bring my pickup selector all the way to the top. So I'm going to fade this up to the top pickup. I'm also going to take my mid EQ and I'm going to boost that. And that's going to give me a nice crisp sound. Where the chords are going to cut through a lot more than they normally would. So instead of just showing you these shapes today, and I will, I'm going to show you a whole bunch of chord shapes that you can use, but I'm going to teach you how to think about them and how to build them yourself. You know, teach a person to fish for life. Teach a bass player chords, they have chords for life. Because the philosophy I have with all of my students is I don't really teach you, I teach you to teach yourself. Because learning never stops. I want you to think of chords as coming from scales, because they do come from scales. In fact, everything we think of comes from the major scale. And the major scale is really the only one that we ever need to reference. Yes, it's beneficial to have the minor scale and the modes and stuff like that. But if you just have the major scale, everything gets compared to that. So we're going to take the numbers of the major scale, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. These are called scale degrees. And if you need more information on scale degrees, I do have a video on that you can reference for learning scale degrees on bass and guitar. But for now, we're going to use these numbers to build our chords. Chords are based on numbers. The major chord is the first, third, and fifth notes from the major scale. So when we're looking for a chord, all we have to do is know the numbers and then go after those numbers in reference to a scale. In this case, and in every case, in reference to the major scale. Right alongside thinking in scales is going to be thinking in intervals. So it's not just that this is 1 and this is 3. I want you to think about that as being a distance. So from here to here, that is a third. Now intervals is almost a whole language in science of its own. For these purposes, we don't need to overly complicate it. But if you want to really dive into that, I've got an entire 8-video playlist that I'll put right here for you that you can go and check out. But for today, we're going to just think of these as being a distance from the note 1. And the last thing we need to think about is the root of the chord. We can think of this as the 1. This can be called the 1. It can be called the root. It's the exact same thing, but it's where the scale starts. So if my C major scale starts on C, there's my C, that's my 1. And so if I learn to build a C major chord, if I learn to build any major chord or any shape, I need to know where that root is. And wherever I put that root, it becomes that chord. So we're going to learn that this is a major chord here in a second. So if that's a C major chord, if I move that note to D, then I have a D major chord. So we're going to look at scales, we're going to think in intervals, and we're going to remember where the root is and put that root over the note that we want that chord to be. Okay, let's put all this stuff to use. Let's build some major chords. So again, I'm just using C today, starting here at this note, ending at this note for my scale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. My first, my third, my fifth notes are the notes of the major chord. But especially when you're doing chords as in multiple notes at one time, you can take out some notes. And the fifth is often the first one to drop. We call that implied. If you hear the first and the third, if you hear this, then the ear automatically sort of fills in that fifth note. So in this case, I'm just going to use the 1 and the 3 because I can't obviously ring both of those out, not in this position, at the same time. But I want to thicken up my chord a little bit. I want to give it some more personality. So I'm going to take the 8. Now the 8, of course, is the same note as the 1. So if I play the 8, I'm just doubling the 1. So I'm going to have 1, 3, and 8. This is one particular arrangement of a major chord. And we're going to call this a voicing. So a voicing is when you have a particular arrangement of notes of any chord. And for some chords today, we'll learn multiple voicings, including the major chord. But this is our first one. That's our major chord. Our next chord is a major 7 chord. So the code is the notes for a major 7 chord are 1, 3, 5, and 7. So first, third, fifth, and seventh notes from the major scale. So this one's pretty easy. I can take my existing major chord and I can just back down by 1. This is 8. That's 7. So I have 1, 3, 7 in this chord now. And again, I'm skipping the fifth. We can think of the fifth as being implied.
Implied, Lisa, or implode?
Mom, make him stop.
So this is our major 7 chord. One of my favorites, really pretty, melancholy chord. Next chord on our list is a dominant chord. So because I'm starting on C and I'm on the C major scale, this is my C major chord. This is my C major 7 chord. My next chord is C7 or C dominant 7. Those are the same thing. And if you want to get confused about that and watch me yell at myself, you can check this out. So a 7 chord or a dominant 7 chord is 1, 3, 5, flat 7. So we're going to go from this 7 to a flat 7. That means that we're going to pull it down by a half step, which means that we're going to go 1 note lower on the neck. And that's my dominant 7 chord. So this dominant 7 chord, this C7 chord, really wants to go to an F. That's a whole other story of music theory, and not going to get into that now, but it's going to sound fantastic if we play an F chord after it. So let's find our F. If this is C, this is F. Okay? So I want to build a chord, a major chord, starting from here. So I have, thinking of my F major scale now. This is my root. This is my starting point. That's 1. I have 1, 2, 3 in the F scale. So this is 1. This is 3. I'm out of strings. I have no more strings left. And I could just use a 2-note chord. That's fine. We could call that F major. That would be fine. I want to put a new note in though. I want to thicken this up just a little bit. So let's look at the 5th. I know it's implied, but we're going to go ahead and throw it into this chord because I think it sounds fantastic. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If this is 5, think of my octave shape. This is my octave. So major scale from here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. If this is 8, this is 1. That means those are the same note. In this case, it's a C, but we don't really care what we're going to call the note. They're the same note. So in my F chord, 1, 3, and 5, if this is 5, this is also 5. Well, that's very interesting because when I play these two notes, if I move my fingers a little bit and change out this finger here, I now have that 5th. And it's below, it's sonically below my C, right? It's a lower note, so we call that the 5th below. It doesn't matter. This is a different voicing, a different arrangement, right, of the same notes. So it's my 1, my 3, and my 5 from whatever given starting point I had, in this case, F. And I rearrange those 1s, those 3s, and those 5s to be in different locations, and I have a different voicing, which sounds different. So there is my F major chord. I could have an F major chord up here. This is an F. That makes it an F major chord. But this is an F. And that makes that an F major chord. Same basic set of notes. This one takes out the 5th, but it's gonna work. If the band's playing an F chord, if the song requires, in this case, an F chord, those are both gonna satisfy the conditions of the song. They're both gonna be playing all the notes that everyone else is playing. So this is also a major chord, but with my root as the center of the 3 strings. C major, C major 7, C7 or C dominant 7 to F major. So let's explore some more voicings just for this one chord, just for this major chord. And then again, we'll use that to explore some minor chord voicings as well. So let's go back to our C chord for a second. If this is C, I have 1 and 3 of this note C, C major chord. Remember we had that 5th. We have that note there, but when I hit that note, it takes away my 3rd. Okay? Well, where else could I find that note? This note, remember the rule, you go up by a string and back by 5 frets, right? And you've got the exact same note. And I can check that with my ears. Those are both G's, or in this case, 5. So if I, instead of having 1, 3, and 5, if I refinger this chord with the 4th finger and the 3rd finger, I can have the 1st finger thrown out this way. Now, I am not a big fan of this voicing, mostly because it's hard. It's just really hard on my wrist, and I usually just have other better voicings that I can use. Also, it puts a lot of strain on the pinky. It just demands a lot of strength from the pinky. So it's not my favorite voicing, but it's available. It's right there, and we can definitely use that. Let's go back to our F chord for a second. So this is my F, this is my 3. We finger that, so I have my 5 below. So I've got 5, 1, and 3 from the point of view of F, F major chord. And thinking of my octaves again, right, I could add one of these as a lower note in the octave. And if I take this F and I go down by 2 strings and down by 2 frets, remember that's my octave shape, okay? That's whenever you make that shape, those 2 notes are always the same. And so if the note's in your chord, if you make the note an octave higher, an octave lower, it's still the same note. So again, I can refinger this. I can use my 1st finger down here, and I'll use these 2 here, and then that one there. So finger 1, finger 3, finger 4, finger 2, and I've got now a 4-note chord. And if you play guitar, you'll recognize this as being probably very likely the first bar chord shape you ever made. It's what I call an E-shaped bar chord, because this is what the open E chord looks like at the bottom of the neck on the guitar, but it's available on bass as well. So there's my F major chord, and it's considered a new voicing because we have an extra note compared to our other voicing where it was just those 3. Big difference in sound too, right? There compared to. Okay, let's go back to our C major chord, our first one. 1, 3, and 8, or 1, 3, and the octave. 1, 3, 1. I'm missing the 5 here, once again. So what if I grab that 5 right there? That gives me 1 and 5 right together. But like we said earlier, that covers up our 3. We really do want the third in there to give it the character of the chord. So where else is that 3 available? 1, 3, that was here. So let's find that on the different string, right? These two are being used, the G and the C string, but this string is available. So let's find out if we can make that note available for us. It's an E, the third, doesn't matter what note it is, but it's an E. And if I go up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and down a string, that's the same note. So I can have my 5 and my 1 here, and my 3 here, and look at that, that is available. Of course, you're gonna have to reach over your string there. So let me show you that. So normally you wanna be muting your strings, right? You lay your hand flat. For playing chords, we're gonna have to actually reach over our strings. I call this landing like a helicopter, right? You're gonna land straight down on that string. Usually when you play bass, you want to land like an airplane. You want to come in real shallow angle, right? Nice and soft, just like an airplane lands. And you want to touch all the strings at once. This time, we need to let some of those strings ring out. So reaching over with the third finger, landing like a helicopter, and having this beautiful major chord voicing with the third in the bass, meaning the third is the lowest note, which we haven't seen before today. We have this lovely chord voicing available to us. And our final major chord voicing for today, this one's a little darker, but it's one of my favorites. It's really, really pretty. And I want to credit Scott from Scott's Bass Lessons. I learned this from one of his videos, and it's a voicing that I just hadn't come up with before. So remember, no matter how many ways you explore voicings and ways to build chords, there's usually another way. There's usually some way that you haven't thought of or that you haven't seen. So if you come up with something that we haven't done here, please let us know in the comments. Like 513, right? That's a chord voicing. So let me know if you find other chord voicings that are not listed here. But here it is. Here's the last major chord voicing. Let's do F on this one again. So again, we have 1 and 3 in F, which makes this 5. Well, let's go back to what we did with the C chord. Let's grab 1 and 5 and see if we can't find that 3 somewhere else. This is going to be a little bit challenging, right? I'm looking for this note somewhere on this string. Obviously, it's going to be an octave lower. So let's do this. Let's go back to this note and find it here. Okay, so I found that note an octave lower. So I'm looking for this note, and that note. And honestly, I mean, that's not really going to happen. Okay, so I can do it, but I'm not enjoying it, right? So I'm looking for this note. Let's see if I can find it on yet another lower string, which is going to bring it further up the neck. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, down a string. That's the note I'm looking for. I'm going to check that by ear, make sure that makes sense. I was looking for this note, and I want that note. I found that note instead. So that's an A, that's an A. They ring together, so they're the same note in different octaves. So what I can do is I can grab my 1 and my 5 here and bring that third way, way down. So I'm going to play this on my A string, and then I'm not playing this string at all. In fact, it's muted because I'm landing just a little bit like an airplane here. I'm muting that as I reach over with my third finger. So not playing this next string, and then I play the next two. And here's the effect we get. So it's a major chord, right? But it's darker. And this is funny because people always say, oh, major chords are happy and minor chords are sad. It's not necessarily true. It's in how it's voiced. It's in the instrumentation. It's in the voicing. And so here we can have this sort of melancholy, sort of little bit dissonant, little bit sad major chord. So it's our own take on the major chord. And of course we could build a whole song, or we could cover someone else's song in a different way using chords the way we want them to be used. Okay, now let's look at all of these from the point of view of a minor chord. The key to a minor chord is 1, flat 3, and 5. That's it. That's the secret code. Now you know, and it's no longer a secret. So we're going to take that third and bring it down. Remember, down is this way. Lower notes are this way. Down by a half step. Okay, let's take our original. Got 1, 3, and 1. If I bring this down, again, I can do that, but I'm not happy about it. That's quite the stretch. And if I do that, I'm not going to want to hold that for a long time. That's just me. I've got a 35-inch scale bass here, and I'm not interested in holding this for any length of time.
No, sir, I don't like it.
So that's fine. I can do that. I just happen to know that if I drop this octave by a whole step, that makes that a flat 7. And so now this is a minor 7 chord. And in almost every situation, if you have a minor chord in a song, a minor 7 chord will be appropriate to use in that song. So if the song says, you know, in this case, C minor, and you play C minor 7, it's fine, as long as you like the sound of it. So it's different, right? It's a little bit darker, or just maybe more flavor with that minor 7 on there. If you don't like that, then we'll find a different voicing, right? But that is available. 1, flat 3, flat 7, minor 7 chord. The next voicing we had in the major chord was 5, 1, 3. So if this is 5, 1, 3, I flat the 3, I take it down by a half step. That creates a really big gap here between my first and second finger. Not comfortable, not necessary. I'm going to relax that gap by moving these 2 fingers in. There we go. Okay, that's much better. And now I have 5, 1, flat 3, and now I've got that, again, supposedly sad minor chord. I guess it's a little sad. So that makes this an F minor chord. And just like we had the major chord version of this, we dropped in the low octave there, and we had this nice thick boomy voicing of that chord. I can drop this note, pull that off, and I have to hold this down, right? So the first finger's holding down my low string and my high string of my 4-string set here, but I can get that minor chord thick boomy version as well. So our next major chord, I believe, was our C major, like this, with the 3, 5, and 1 at the top. So that's my 1 at the top. If that's a C, that's the root of my chord, C major chord. Well, let's make this a minor chord, shall we? Where's my third? It's right there. Take that down by a half step. And now it's a minor chord. C major, C minor. And because my third is in the bass, because it's my lowest note, I know it's in the bass, but in the bass meaning the lowest note of this chord voicing, it makes it darker, right? And that's just something that we'll learn about chords. A way we can use theory. Don't get scared off here. We're using a little bit of theory, right? But if I know that the third in the bass makes my chord a little darker, a little more dissonant, then I can use that to my advantage, right? So here's our C minor chord. And of course, my favorite one, full credit to Scott's Bass Lessons, is where I drop that third 2 strings below. So let's go back to F there. So I've got 1 and 5 in F, right? Remember my major third was down here, right? Really pretty voicing. Well, we can drop that 3 to a flat 3, and we have a minor chord voicing. It's really nice. I really like that. It's so fun. And from here, I turn you loose. You've graduated from Alex's Bass Chords 101. I hope you feel confident now in your ability to teach yourself a variety of chords on your 6-string bass or on any bass that you're playing. If you use the download link below, you can get a free copy of my Autumn Leaves chord voicings. So voicings for 6-string bass that go along with the song Autumn Leaves. And so that way you can get started working on a real song, real bass chords, real song. It's all part of my free downloads page, bass lines, bass covers, and also a bunch of exercises that you can use to make you a better bass player, right? That's what we're doing here. So use the link, enjoy. And if you need more help, feel free to reach out to me at my website, stepbystepmusic.com. And I will see you next time.
Who are these people anyways?